After going to the bathroom, do you ever notice your poo? Do you turn around and have a look and see what it is like? Well, it has its own personality. Sometimes it can be dark, white, different colors, different textures. It just always varies, right? But what does this say about your health? How can your number 2 determine your health, and what can it say about it? That is exactly what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. I'm going to talk to you about the signs of the bowel movement. Then I'm going to talk to you about what an abnormal and a normal poo should look like, and then tips on how you can perfect your bowel movement. Let's get into it. It's Mondays with Mihaela. That's right, me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love, and appreciate your support. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening to this on the podcast or on YouTube, I really appreciate it. Rate, like, review, subscribe so you get notified to all of my absolutely amazing content. I'm giving it all out for you for free because I believe that you need it to have optimal health. All right, so if any of you don't know me, my name is Mihaela. I'm a qualified naturopath. I'm here on Mondays to provide you with simple, savvy, and sustainable health hacks to optimize your health. That's right, I've got other segments on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday coming out, and they talk about different things. So flick through, scroll through, and do a podcast binge. All right. Well, look, today's topic is going to be an interesting one. I'm going to be talking about everything to do with bowel movements, in particular number 2, in particular feces, in particular poo, if you want to call it that way. All right. So as off-putting as the topic may sound, and turning around and having a look at what is there every single morning or at night or whenever you do go to the bathroom and do number 2, look, the color, the shape, the size, the smell can all tell you about what is going on inside of you. That's right. What's going on inside of you? You can say everything, you can see it all by a poo. Well, not all of it, but most of it by a poo. A lot of individuals go and get blood tests done. They get these tests done left, right, and center. But I say, if you haven't analyzed your bowel movement, then what's the point of getting a blood test? What's the point of doing further investigations that you have to fork out money for? And it's not free. Whereas looking at your bowel movement every day is free. It happens every day and you can keep track of it. Okay, so outside of what you eat, exercise, sleep, water intake, your hormones, your what's happening in your body, they all influence your bowel movements. The medication you're taking, I can just imagine those individuals that have been on painkillers. You know exactly what happened to your bowel movement. It did not come out and you were constipated. That's exactly right. So there's so many things that can influence your bowel movement. All right, well, let's get into it. Let's talk about the basic signs of your bowel movement. What is a poo? I mean, you see it come out and it's there in the toilet, but it's kind of like, well, what is it? Like, where did that come from? I know I didn't eat it. I know, how does this body produce this? What is it? All right, well, let's get into it. So it's mostly undigested food, protein, bacteria, salts, and other substances that are produced and released by your intestines. So it's quite interesting because on an average, a human can eliminate as much as, so the average is about 128 grams of feces per day. That is a fair bit of feces right there when you think about it. And 75% of it is water. Yes, so those individuals who are not drinking water, what does that do to your bowel movements? But we'll get into that later. 25% is solid matter, and that from that solid matter, 30% of the solid matter consists of dead bacteria. It consists of 30% consists of indigestible food matter such as cellulose, which is found in vegetables. 10 to 20% is cholesterol and other fats. 10 to 20% is inorganic substances such as calcium phosphates and iron phosphates, and 2 to 3% is protein. There you go. So that's what makes up your bowel movement that you see hopefully every day. But how is it formed? How is it formed? Such an interesting way it is formed. And this is where I always say, are you drinking enough water? Are you moving? Are you having enough fiber? So the way that feces is formed is it's a solid bodily waste discharge from the large intestines through the anus during defecation. So that's what happens. It goes from the large intestines to your anus, and then you remove it through your body. So feces are normally removed from the body once to twice a day. It just depends on the individual and what they're eating and all of these other things taken consideration. So we saw that the average was 128 grams, but it can vary from 100 to 250 grams of feces are excreted. That is 250 grams. That's a lot. When you think about it, that's like, I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to. It's kind of like, when people get a burger, it's 120 grams burger. So yeah, so that is a lot when you think about it. So the feces are formed in the colon and passed down the rectum, which is when the rectum is sufficiently distended, nerve endings in its wall signals a need to evacuate. Okay, so what happens is once we have enough feces in there, it spreads out, like it pushes through the walls and it pushes against the walls. And when it pushes against the walls, we get a signal to our brain saying we need to go to the bathroom. We need to remove this out of our body. So this is when we have a voluntary movement. This is when we go to the bathroom and we decide to release voluntary, not involuntary, which means we want to do it. However, saying it's a nerve ending, it shows to us that a number of individuals can have issues with this if the nerves aren't functioning the way they're supposed to be. Either they don't get the signal to go. So this is when I talk to individuals, I always ask them, do you get a need to go? Do you need to get a signal to go? Because if they don't get a signal to go, they may be an issue with their nerves, okay? There may be issues with their nerves down there, right? So that's what happens. It pushes out. Once it's full, it goes, I'm ready to evacuate immediately. And that's when you see a lot of individuals rushing to the bathroom and then they evacuate. They remove that feces out of their body, okay? So that's a voluntary movement where the relaxation of the sphincter muscle around the outer part of the anus removes the bowels, okay? So that is what bowel movement is and how our stool is formed. So now your question is, like everyone else's question is, what is normal? What is considered normal? Well, my definition is there's no such thing as normal. Every individual is different, okay? But there are a number of things taken consideration. There's a number of things our body does at a homeostasis level. So medical professionals use something called the Bristol chart. I love the Bristol stool chart, okay? To classify bowel movements. It identifies 7 categories. Type 1 and 2 indicate constipation. You know what? We'll pop it up here. There we go. So number 1 and 2 indicate constipation. 3 and 4 are mostly the ideal poos. 5, 6, 7 would suggest something along the lines of diarrhea. Okay. So it's broken up into 7 categories, and this has been done on 2,000 studies. This is based on 2,000 studies. So it's not just someone that decided to draw this up and be like, oh, this will be fun to use. This is actually done on studies, and it gives us the basic knowledge and easy to understand what our stool should look like. So have a look at that Bristol stool chart. If you want a copy of it, you know what, I'm going to link it below so you can access it and have a look at it. What is your stool usually? Is it a number 1, 2, which is mainly hard lumps, sausage shaped but lumpy, hard to remove? Or is it more of a 3, 4 where it's kind of like a sausage, it's smooth, maybe sometimes has a bit of cracks, remove it? Or is it a 5, 6, 7, which is more the diarrhea type? What is it, right? And when you consider the normality of a stool, we look at such things as what a ideal stool should look like. The color would be brown. The shape would be log-like. The size should be a couple of centimeters in length and easy to pass through, not pieces by pieces. The consistency should be firm and soft. The length of time that means the time it should take for you to remove the stool out of your body, it should take about a minute. But I always say give it about 1 to 15 minutes, depends on the individual, but it shouldn't take long. It should just be a go thing. I don't know, you're thinking, oh, you can think of someone in your head, oh my gosh, they're always in the toilet, they take so long. Well, maybe there's an issue there. Or maybe they just like to be excluded from the rest of the world. They're a bit of an introvert. Yeah, so and the other one we look at is frequency. How often do we go? Do we go every other day or do we go 3 times a day? So that is something that we look at, and we're going to go into more detail about what, if you find some different things in your stool, what they may mean. All right, so now that we kind of considered what a normal stool should look like, which is brown, log-like, couple centimeters long, not in pieces, firm and soft, so easy to pass through, take about a couple of minutes to pass through, and you go about every day, once, twice, or even 3 times, okay? Considered normal-ish in an individual. So now let's look at what is an abnormal stool. Okay, some of the things that are abnormal that shouldn't occur every day when you are passing through feces is pooping too often. I said that, pooping too often. Yeah, so that's more than 3 times a day. Okay. However, if you go usually every single day, twice a day, and then you have 3 times a day, that may be okay. But take note, this is where key is to manage your stool. Okay, keep a track of it and manage your stool. So the other one is not pooping every day or often enough. So that's considered medically less than 3 times a week. Okay, so that's kind of like every second day or something. So that's kind of like an abnormal way. So also is excess straining, so constipated, so sitting on the toilet and just having to strain to push it through. You shouldn't have to do that. Pooping, poop that is color red, black, green, yellow, and white. And I'm going to go into that, what they mean, in particular, those colors, what it means, what's happening in your body, so you can figure out what's happening inside of you. Greasy, fatty stools are also abnormal. Also having pain when your feces is coming out is an issue. Blood is a huge issue, which we'll get into later. Bleeding, bleeding when passing the stool also. So having blood in the feces, but also bleeding whilst you are removing that stool out of your body. Watery, like diarrhea, is also abnormal. Very hard, dry, and hard to pass. That is also not normal. So now we've kind of gathered what is feces, how your body makes feces, what you can use to measure and understand your feces. Know what is the normal and what is the abnormal feces. Okay, so now let's look into what can affect your stool. What can affect it? So for example, some people would be drinking a lot more milk and that can give them diarrhea. But what are other things that can affect the size, the color, the consistency of their feces? So number one thing that I always go back to is stress. How is your stress? The gut and the brain axis. I did a recent video, check it out. The gut and the brain axis, they are interlinked. They talk to each other, like I said, more than you probably talk to yourself. So it's also titled as the second brain because of its interaction with the brain, the gut, right? The gut influences the same neurotransmitters affected by emotions such as anger, anxiety, and have more neurons lining the gut than they contain in the spinal cord. So that is absolutely crazy. So that just gives you a bit of an understanding as to why and how stress would influence your feces, your bowel movements, okay? So when you're stressed, when you got anxiety, when you're emotional, you would be going less or you may be going more to the bathroom. And I can already feel a few people being like, yep, that's me. I definitely have the runs when I'm anxious. I definitely get constipated when I'm emotional. So just keep a note on that. The other one is dehydration. I always got water with me. There you go. Always got water with me. I'm going to take a little bit now. Make sure you're having your water now, right? Okay, so with dehydration, the stool requires moisture to be able to move through the digestive system and also be able to bulk up that stool. Like we said earlier, what is your stool made up of? 70% water. If you are not having water, how are you going to make your feces? That is my question. Think about it, right? Next one is a lack of fiber. This can go either way. It can go too much fiber, too little fiber. So just bear with me. So a lack of fiber, and I'm going to put in there too much fiber also. So fiber is the binding substance to give this feces the form, but also too much fiber can have issues on individuals also, right? So it's about balance. Everything's about balance, right? I know a lot of people are like, oh, but I need fiber. You've been told you need fiber, you need fiber, you need fiber. Yes, you need fiber, but there are those rare individuals that have too much fiber and it's causing them issues. And this is why it's key to get your diet looked at by a professional to understand what you're eating and what it's doing to your body. Next one is food intolerances or allergies. And this is what I was talking about: wheat, soy, peanuts, milk, dairy products. Sometimes they, those individuals, I don't know if you've ever been out with a friend and then they have an ice cream and the next minute they're like, and you just see them bolting to the bathroom because they just can't handle it. They forgot for a second that they're lactose intolerant, and the next thing they know, they are in the bathroom for a few hours, right? Absolutely crazy. But it does happen to some individuals, and this is what impacts it. So maybe you may be having some food intolerances that you're unaware of, but you don't know because you're not tracking your stool, right? The other thing is medical conditions such as your thyroid issues, such as cancer, depression, anxiety, even Parkinson's disease. These all impact our bowel movements, okay? They impact our bowel movements in addition to medication. So if you are on any medications, they can cause constipation, such as antihistamines, antidepressants, chemotherapy drugs, analgesic drugs, as well as opioids. So they can cause constipation. And when you're in pain, you're like, well, do I want to be in pain or do I want to have the constipation? Well, there's other ways out, and let's look into, at the end of the episode, how we'll be able to make sure that you have the perfect feces every day, right? So this is the exciting part. This part I love, because a lot of individuals are not educated about their stool. It's such a taboo topic. It's even me doing this topic. I bet you a lot of people will be like, oh my gosh, why is she talking about bowel movements? Like, why is she talking about that? But I'm talking about bowel movements because they are key for our health. We need to understand our body. We need to understand our bowel movements to understand our health. Okay, so what I want to talk about now, I'm going to talk about what your bowel movements say about your health. Okay, let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's analyze your feces. Okay, so tomorrow when you go to do a bowel movement, or if you have one done today, you can look and be like, oh, I know what that means. Mihaela said that, blah, 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 blah. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into this exciting part. Okay, so if your stool is hard, okay, that may mean you are constipated. I bet you already knew that. It's not new news, right? So that's less than 3 bowel movements a week, medically speaking. So either there is a blockage or nerve issue in around the colon or rectum. So that's something that we would look at. Is there a nerve issue like I mentioned earlier? Are you pregnant or do you have diabetes? Because this can impact your bowel movement and make it hard. Are you having a low fiber diet? Are you not having enough water? Are you not moving? Are you just sitting in the office or just sitting at home? Or are you stressed? So those are the things to take in consideration if your feces is very hard. So look at your diet, look at your fiber intake, look at your hydration, look at your movement, and look at your stress levels, okay? On the other side, on the flip side, let's look at, is your feces loose? Okay, so diarrhea, right? Is it loose? 3 or more loose or liquid-like movements per day. That's considered as diarrhea, right? So 80% of people don't know that they have celiac disease, and this is the link to gluten, and this can be causing your diarrhea. Okay, a lot of I think it's about 80% of individuals don't know that they had celiac. So for 20 or so years, I think the average was about 20 years that it took them to find out, they had no idea that they had celiac because they were fine. There was no issues besides the diarrhea. But in their eyes, that was normal because it happened every day, all the time. It's kind of like, well, it happens all the time. Maybe normal to you, but after listening to this episode, it may actually not be normal, right? So it might be an issues in your gut, in your health, right? So have you been checked for celiac disease? If you have diarrhea every single day, have you been checked for celiac disease? Check it out. The other one is an infection. Do you have a current infection? Because diarrhea is caused by infections, right? Do you have bile acid malabsorption? So bile acid is released, what is made in our gallbladder, released by the liver, assists with fat breakdown, metabolism, okay? So are you eating too many fatty foods and then you don't have enough bile to digest it, so therefore it just goes and runs through you, right? But the other thing is also when it's loose, you have a short transit time. What a transit time means is if I eat something now, it should take a certain amount of hours to go through my body. However, that is compressed, so it only takes 5 hours instead of 24, for example. So that's a short transit time. Why do you have a short transit time? Think about your diet. What are you doing? Enough fiber, dehydrated, and so forth. The other thing is also when you have diarrhea, you have trouble absorbing nutrients and a loss of fluid and electrolytes. So please ensure if you are having diarrhea that you replenish your electrolytes. And I do not mean replenish your electrolytes by having those sugary drinks. Make your own electrolyte drink. You want to know how? All right, listen up, get a pen, right? Filtered water, sea salt, a squeeze of lemon, right? And then you can add in, if you want, some honey, right? Because that's the glucose in it. You mix it through and there you have your sodium, potassium, minerals, right? That's it. That will give electrolytes back to your body. I know you may be thinking, oh, but I shouldn't be having salt. Please, please do not be scared of salt. Put that in your drink and that is an amazing electrolyte drink after you have diarrhea. Remember it for next time. Okay, next one. Floaters. This is so interesting. Okay, so floaters. What I mean by floaters is when you, because I look at my poo every single day, right? I look behind, I go, oh, what's happening down there, right? I look there and I go, oh, why is it floating? But the other day, it's funny, the other day I went away and we went to the beach. Right, and here it's winter season in Australia, so it's pretty cold, but besides the point, went to a public toilet and I walked into the first cubicle, ooh, a floaty. Walked into the second cubicle, ooh, another floaty. Walked into the third cubicle, another floaty. I was like, why are there so many floaties? But you understand why. I'll tell you what floaties mean. So floaties mean excess gas in your body. So how many people have bloating gas, right? So this is how floaties are formed. They've either eaten too many beans, sprouts, cabbages, or large meals, or had high fatty meals. So when you think about it, right, I was at the beach. What do you usually, well, in Australia, what do people usually have at the beach? Fish and chips. Okay, so that's why in my head I'm like, oh, floaty, oh, fish and chips, oh, floaty, oh, yeah, fish and chips. So, or people just eat larger meals because they're believe it on a holiday or something along those lines. So that is interesting. So that's what a floaty means. If you see undigested food in your stool, the norm that they say are such things as seeds, nuts, corn, grape skin, because due to the high fiber content, right? I remember, I think it was my cousin, she called me and she's like, oh my God, that her kid had all grape skin coming out, but you know, it is considered as normal-ish. But if you do have undigested food other than that, or you always see undigested food, it may be because you're just scoffing down your food. Everyone scuffs down their food. No one takes time and actually eats their food in a relaxed manner. So that's why you may be having undigested food. The other one is mucus. Okay, mucus in the stool. You might get a bit like, oh, why do I have that jelly-like substance in my stool? Well, the thick jelly-like substance mucus lubricates your intestines, protecting it from acid, bacteria, viruses, makes the movement of the stool easy to pass. Okay, so Is it normal? Is it not? Well, okay. If the mucus is yellow or white, there may be inflammation or irritation in that intestinal wall. So it would have picked it up and released it. So that may be a bit of an issue. I would definitely contact your healthcare professional or your naturopath or whoever you're talking to get an understanding of what that may mean. Now that you know what a floaty is, what a loose, hard, undigested food stool is, let's look at colors. This is an interesting one. Let's look at colors. What do different colors mean? So this means you do have to have a look at your feces to understand what color it is. Okay. Brown, right? Everyone, when there's an emoji or anything, it's brown feces, right? That is considered normal. Well, why is it brown? Well, it's bilirubin. It's because of bilirubin that it's white. It's which is a pigment compound formed from the breakdown of red blood cells in our body, and it gets the credit of the so lovely brown colored feces. That's why your feces is brown. So if your feces is not brown, there may be an issue with that. But let's get into what each color means. White. Why are you having white feces? Okay, this may be due to medication. Heavy duty medication. It may be because your liver is not making enough bile. Okay, so some individuals have had their gallbladder removed and therefore their liver is important for bile formation. So there may be an issue there, the gallbladder or liver issue. Issues with bile not getting to the GI tract. If the bile duct is blocked due to a stone or a tumor, bile is unable to make down to, which means the stool turns white. So it's unable to make it down. So your feces won't be able to form that brown color. So it is white, right? And it's common with individuals who have liver issues. So anyone that you know that may have liver issues maybe have white stools, such as hepatitis and cirrhosis, scarring of the liver. So that's white. Okay, let's look at black. Yes, people do get black stools, and this is a lot of females get black stools because they're taking iron supplements off the shelf, right? So however, it could be because of medication, so that's supplementation of medication. However, it can be due to bleeding from the upper GI tract, not lower, upper GI tract, such as stomach ulcers, right? It could be because of stomach ulcers, high iron, like I said, with the supplementation, or you might just be having licorice because licorice is black and it may be making your stool black. Okay, so now you're like, oh my gosh, I have red stool feces. Do not panic. First motion is do not panic. Okay, this is why you should not panic. First, should not panic. Think about what you ate yesterday. What did you eat yesterday that may have made it red? Did you have any tomatoes? Did you have any beetroot? Did you have any food colorings? I know you shouldn't, but hey, do you have any cranberries? Did you have any food that was red? So before you panic and think, oh my gosh, red, I need to go see a doctor, think, what did you eat? Because if you ate any of them, I know it's happened to me. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I'm like, oh yes, lots of beetroot. And then, so think about what you ate, right? If you cannot think about anything that you ate that was that color, panic. Well, don't panic, but I'm not saying panic, but go and get it checked out. Go see a doctor because it may be polyp inflammation, diverticulitis, hemorrhoids, even colon cancer. This is something to take seriously. So it's kind of like a panic, don't panic. Think about what you ate first and then go see your healthcare professional. Next color is yellow. I feel like I'm talking about the rainbow, but the colors of the rainbow. So yellow, a lot of individuals have yellow feces. Okay, yellow feces, a lot of the yellows actually float, which they did in my scenario before. And this is issues digesting fat, right? Too much fat. They have too much fat. They're unable to break down this fat. So they may have had their gallbladder removed, or they might have bile issues, not being able to produce enough bile, digestive issues, yellow digestive issues, especially if in consideration taken together with a floaty. Digestive issues galore. Get them checked out. Look at it. Have you had your gallbladder removed? Next one is green. think about it. Did you eat all your greens? Because I remember when I was on a detox, my feces were green. It was green galore because all I was eating was green vegetables. So consistently green and not food related may actually be an infection. So the stool is not passing through. So it may be a bit of an issue similar to yellow, a bit of fat issues, or an infection. Okay, now that you know how to read your feces and get a better understanding of your feces, what can you do? Let's go quickly run through it. What can you do to get your feces to be the best possible? Water, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Drink your water, please hydrate. It is key to get your bowels moving, okay? Number 2, stress. Reconsider your stress, look at your stress, make stress your best friend. Get along with stress, understand your body, how it reacts to stress, okay? 3 is identify if you have any food allergies or sensitivities like gluten, dairy, corn, eggs, anything you can think of, soy. Think about, are you having a reaction to this? Okay, now that you know, okay, I'm going to chuck in a bonus, right? Because we're talking about feces, you stuck to the end. This episode was a bit like, ooh, on edge, informative. So I'm going to give you a 4th bonus is squat. Squat, squat, squat. If you can't squat, I'm not telling you to sit on your toilet and squat. Put up a stool in front of you so your knees are raised, right? So your knees are raised and you're pushing yourself forward. So you're sitting forward, your knees are raised, because that is the perfect way to release the feces out of your body. There you have it. I gave you an extra one on tips on how to improve your bowel movements. All right. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I know I did. I love this stuff and I want to inform you and educate you so you get the best optimal health, the best bowel movement in this situation. So we all have bowel movements. It's part of living. It's part of a healthy life. And this is an indicator of what is going on. So do me a favor and check in on your feces next time you have a bowel movement and think about what's happening with my health. All right. Love, like, share, do what you do best. Please share this with someone who needs a check-in on their bowel movements. Until next Monday, love you.